Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another program of the Veterans Forum. We're coming to you from the studios here at Pittsfield Community Television Set. Today is the 20th of October, 2008. We have another interview, and I want you to sit back, take good notes, because this will be a very special program. And I get excited, but I'm supposed to keep my mouth shut. Today, I'm going to have Joe introduce himself, tell you who he is, where he's from, his rank at discharge, and take it from there. You're on, young man. Spell your last name, too, after you're through, please.
Joseph T. Lynskey, Jr., L-Y-N-S-K-E-Y.
Okay.
And now I presently live at 133 Working Road, W-E-R-K-I-N-G Road, East Greenbush, New York, 12061. I just moved up here 3 years ago to live with my son, but I'm basically from New Jersey for 80-some years. So.
Okay, so there is a small tie back there.
Yeah.
Okay. What were your dates of service, your branch of service, and anything else you'd like to add to
Well,
that?
I was in the Marine Corps from 44 to 48, and then in the Army from 49 to 53 to 55 with my inactive duty. So,
Wow.
So I had total about 10 years in
Okay.
2 different wars.
And your rank at discharge? You
Gunnery sergeant,
gunnery sergeant, first class?
first class.
Amen, buddy.
Amen, yeah.
Okay. Now, obviously, 4th Division Marines, what we're trying to do in this program, among other things, having these fellows share their histories with us, is to identify the branch and where they were, because recently we're starting to have fellows who are completely unknown to each other. Now, through this program and the ones that do up in Dalton, are getting together some 60-odd years ago to now and relate and have some reunions. A lot of them never have gone to a reunion as such, but these small local reunions are absolutely wonderful. We hope that you'll enjoy this one, okay? Joe, so we can get established, where were you born, when, and how was your life growing up as a kid?
I was born in Camden, New Jersey in 1925, December the 16th, and my father moved a couple places till I was about 6 years old, but into central Camden, where I started grammar school at St. Mary's Grammar School. I went to grammar school there, then moved to North Camden, New Jersey, where I went to another grammar school, which was a different parish. And I went there for 8 years. And then I went back to the center of the city to the high school at Camden Catholic High, where I graduated from there on some sort of a special situation. When I was 17 and a half, I was fearful of being drafted, which most of us were. We wanted to enlist, but they wouldn't take you
Until they signed up.
until you. So they had a program in high school and in the Marine Corps, or the Navy then really, that if you were in the upper half of your class and your marks and all, you could enlist in the branch you wanted to, and then finish your high school, and the next day you had to report to the Armory. So I did enjoy it. I joined that, and I signed the papers, and they let me finish high school. And when I was 18, when I graduated, the very next day I went to the Armory, and as I was telling most people, they lined up 120 men that was enlisted in the Navy,
Mm-hmm.
and the commander come down. I think he was a Lieutenant J.G. He came down and picked the first 100 men and put them in the Navy, and he said to the last 20, of which I was one of, you're in the Marine Corps. It's part of the Navy.
Yeah.
So that's how I got in the Marine Corps, and they shipped me off to basic training in Parris Island. And I was at Parris Island 12 weeks. And when I was on Parris Island, it was you went over from Beaufort, South Carolina, which was really Port Royal. And when you went over the causeway, they put up the bridge. You couldn't get off the island then. Now they can get off the island. It's different. So we were there 12 weeks and come out of there, and they sent me to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, for advanced infantry training. I was there about 2.5 weeks, and aboard a troop train to Camp Pendleton, California, where I joined the 4th Marine Division and went overseas with them.
Good. Going back a bit, though, this is a standard, obviously,
That's
but
all right.
Anything in boot that really has a memory that's good or bad. Now, I ask it this way. A lot of the guys say that the more recent ones, the younger ones, under 50, the DIs these days were very polite.
They were different, yeah. When I was in, they were not. When I was in, all the DIs had riding crocs. You know what that is?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they carried one of them, and they used to let you have it once in a while.
Okay.
And then when I was in, you had to salute a platoon sergeant and above.
The full hand or just one finger?
Hand salute. You had to do that. That was in boot camp only.
Yep.
And you couldn't speak to the without special permission. I used to have to, when you went over to speak to someone, you would say, "Private First Class Joseph Lynskey would like to speak to the sergeant in charge," and he'd say, "Permission granted," or he'd tell you to get out of the room, don't bother me, one or the other. So,
made you feel welcome.
yeah,
huh?
yeah.
There were also others.
But in boot camp, my memories was one of my drill instructors was a corporal named James Glover. He was an ex-professional boxer. Well, in boot camp, every morning after you have roll call, you'd have you eat, then you have an hour of calisthenics. And in the hour of calisthenics, you'd have maybe 20 minutes of 1-minute rounds of boxing. And invariably, they put me in with him, and I would pick myself up every other day. But that's one of the things. Mostly, it was a good. I was able to go through the basic well, and it's just like all of us was 72 of us in one platoon, 36 on a lower deck and 36 on the upper deck, and that's.
That was SOL.
It's about the training was rough. Yep. I mean, we used to take a 15, 20-mile hike every day sometimes.
Full pack?
All full pack, 65 pounds.
Yeah.
In the sand. There was all sand down there, and now it's all macadamized. That's about the most I can remember in basic that was outstanding was the boxing. Other things were you couldn't go to the PX because they would send one man every weekend to the PX to get everybody's supplies. Well,
he was the courier.
One man. Well, he had to get a bag, and he was carrying that back. And everybody got their pogey bait, which is candy. You know, they had their pogey bait and cigarettes, 5 cents a pack. That's a good way back, 5 cents a pack.
Yeah.
And those are the things, and whatever toothpaste you needed. And you had to keep yourself pretty well strict. And another good thing, another strange thing about the boot camp was the stretching of the blanket on your bed. You had to be able to pop the quarter off of there, and it had to spring up, and if it didn't, you got punished for it.
I know.
Got demerits. You'd go in the latrine and start scrubbing with the toothbrush. You know, I did that.
Memories, huh? Oh God. Hey, that was the name of the game.
That's right. It was teaching you discipline and how to take orders, and of course you don't know it at the time, but in later years you learned that if there was 1,000 Marines lined up in a row, and you didn't know the first guy or the last guy, the two of them, they did the exact thing they were supposed to do at the exact time because that's the way they were trained.
That's right. One of the guys gave me, what he thought was the clue. He said, when they get you in, they break you down to nothing and then build you up to become a man and a Marine. And it makes sense because, as you say,
that's true.
Okay, hit the deck, you didn't question, you dropped. You know the other words too, how much and when, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, those things are.
All right.
I remember when we got off the troop train in Buford, we got on a cattle car. There was the old side, like a cattle. And there was a gunnery sergeant named Lou Diamond. He won the Congressional Medal of Honor when his time. He was older. But he was in charge of recruits, and he said, you know, all of you had to remember that not one of you are not worth more than a plug nickel, which you might die tomorrow. So.
Yeah. And the old bit, you know, when we're going in, there's going to be 25 of you guys not coming back. And, geez, I'm going to miss all these guys.
Yeah.
Everybody had the same bravo.
That's true,
Ever get invited to participate in the obstacle course?
Oh, I was in the obstacle course, which is now called the Crucible.
Crucible, yeah. I know.
It's
I
still
put it that
same.
way, invited, because...
Still shoot the 30 calibers over. Of course, now they shoot the 50s.
Yeah.
But they shot the 30 calibers over, and you better keep your head down because they were real bullets.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if you stuck your head over that barbed wire, you're in trouble.
I know. There used to be no, this is your show. I should shut up.
That's all right.
No, but I mean, it brings back a hell of a lot of memories, you know. But the good part about it is, and I'm happy to say it, we're here to talk about it.
Yes, I feel fortunate.
Yeah,
there,
there's
yes.
a lot of guys that had some stories like this way back when that unfortunately are not here right now for whatever reasons. Now, when you got over to, was it Lejeune?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
What were you training? Did you have any special pre-embarkation training?
we were practicing on Onslow Beach in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. We were practicing craft landings, landing the craft. We knew we were going to be
over the
an
nine
invasion.
on the nets and all that good
It'd
stuff.
be 20, it'd be one platoon in each LCVP, and a ramp would go down. You go out and get on the
Scream and
beach
yell
and dig
and all
holes
that
and
good
all that
stuff.
kind of stuff.
Okay.
But that's what we trained for, strictly for amphibious operation, nothing else.
Now, we ever trained? We had called heavy weather. That get you out in some kind of a storm, so that even when you're coming in, it wasn't a nice mill pond. You had to take
No,
it.
we didn't reach any storms then, but I did reach some in the Pacific.
Okay,
I was involved in a hurricane and after effects of a typhoon, but I wasn't in the typhoon.
Okay, good.
The hurricanes, they taught you to, it was later on that was, but they would tie yourself down to something so you.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, okay? Now, when did you leave the States for your formal embarkation out?
I left August of, the first day of September, the end of August. It was either one of the two. We left the United States for parts unknown. We didn't know where we were going.
Okay,
we
44,
joined,
43.
we joined a fleet, is what we
Okay.
joined. And the fleet was embarked to go to the Hawaiian Islands, where the 4th Division was stationed. In Camp Maui on the island of Maui. They were up by Camp Mount Haleakala, which is a dormant volcano. And they had a ranch up there that belonged to Colonel Charles Lindbergh. He loaned that to the Marine Corps. And we trained up in there, and was in a little town called Paia, P-A-I-A. And that's where we trained. Then we went off from there to different battles, back and forth, and then we come back here and rest and recuperate, blah, blah, blah. Unless you went to the hospital or something like that. And,
Or didn't make it at all.
yes. And then we were, I was not involved in all the campaigns, but my outfit itself was in 14 months in 4 battles, and out of the 14 months, they were 5 months aboard ship, traveling from one to the other. We were in the island hopping campaign, that's what it was called.
Where'd they start down and come up to, do you know?
Pardon me?
Where were their first engagements?
The first one was Rowing to Moore, Saipan, Tinian, and then Iwo Jima.
Okay.
And then we left Iwo. The division got disbanded after Iwo, and they formed the 6th Marine Division, which was in turn invaded Okinawa, which I was not a part of. I was transferred to Guam, and after I got out of the hospital, I went back to Guam and joined part of the outside group. There was like they were attending to different things, like we were in charge of a prisoner of war camp.
Okay.
That were still alive. The prisoners were they kept from the Japs. But then we got left there to go to possibly invade Formosa, which the war wasn't over yet. We were aboard ship when they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, and then we were still aboard when they dropped it upon Nagasaki, and then we didn't have to go to Formosa. Then we went into Yokohama, Japan, and took over the Yokohama Naval Base, the 25th Regiment.
Occupational duty then.
Right. Well, at the time it was, I guess it was the occupational troop, but they didn't name it that. They just said they were.
Well,
just,
I'm updating
yeah.
it.
Well, that's probably. We didn't know whether, and most of the Japanese people didn't even know they were losing the war. They were never told nothing.
I know.
But that's an overall picture.
Okay, let's go back more specific. Prior to and then when you participated in the invasion of Iwo, can you give us that story as to how it came along and how you acted and what happened and so forth?
Oh, well, I can remember it on February the 19th. It was about 2:30 or 3 in the morning. They woke us up. And like I said, they fed us steak and eggs for breakfast. And at 6 o'clock, they said, everybody over the side. We went over to Jacob's Ladder. You know what they are.
Oh, yeah.
Down into the LCVPs. And then we rendezvoused in the mist and the fog. There was a lot of fog there. And smoke from all the invasion forces firing the 16-inch guns and the 12s and whatever they had.
How big an invasion force you said? Something like 400 ships?
There was 400 ships, and there was and the front line coming in was 2.5 divisions. It was the 4th Division, the 5th Division, and 2 regiments of the 3rd Division was in the center, and the 5th was on the left, and the 4th was on the right. 4th had 2 battalions, of which I was one of the battalions I was in. The 25th was in the first waves, and the 23rd and the 25th. The 24th was in reserve, and then we landed there. We had to go in maybe about 100 yards. We couldn't traverse that sand. That sand was so bad that you couldn't grab no, couldn't get foothold, couldn't get no Amtraks up there, couldn't get a tank up there at all.
There's no place to hide.
No, and no place to hide. And so we got about 6 waves in. No shots were fired, and the Japs let loose with flat trajectory fire of their artillery as well as their mortars, and they drove us back on the beach with 6 waves on the beach, and that's when the massive amount of dead people really occurred on the beach there, and just like bodies. They was scooping the bodies up with bulldozers. It was a terrible thought to see. So then from there we went in little by little. We 100 yards a day, maybe 110 yards a day. We skirted to the right and went up into the amphitheater and the meat grinder where we were fighting, and by that time, by the 3rd or 4th day, I think it was the 3rd day or the 4th, they raised the flag, and then that indicated some achievement. And then we got 2 of the airfields. There was 3 airfields on there. We captured 2 of them, got them settled out, and then we just kept on going, and it was just fighting toe to toe and hand to hand, and it was a lot of. You didn't see too many Japs, but there was. Times when you would see them sneak out and go from one cave to another. They were mostly in caves. And
all honeycomb throughout the area.
Yeah, it's terrible. And so anyway, every once in a while we'd have a chance to see them. Then we would be able to fight. But and we had lost so many. Just the tragedy is we lost so many men. Yeah. It was 2 out of every 3 men on Iwo Jima either got killed or wounded. 2 out of every 3.
Yeah, I know.
And so on the 21st day, I was leading a patrol up in the meat grinder. They call it the meat grinder because that's where the men that got blowed up and shot got the worst kind of conditions.
That was gory.
It was gory. It was gory, yeah. And so I was going up there, and I seen this black wire going across the ravine. I knew it was a booby trap. Mm-hmm. And so I turned around to the men. I said, call the engineers because you weren't allowed to touch them. You had to let the engineers come and disengage
bomb disposal
them. Right?
Guys, yeah.
So I put my foot over one, and when I put my foot over, I stepped on a landmine. No, I stepped on a landmine. I heard a click. Well, it didn't go off until you got off the landmine, right? Well, as I tried to get off, I tripped the wire. So the booby trap went off and the landmine went off, but I had turned, and I was fortunate enough. It just shattered me on the right-hand side. I got shrapnel on my right-hand side, and but it didn't kill me. I don't know why, but it was fortunate enough it didn't kill me. So
well, obviously now you're here.
Yeah,
I'm bright.
Then I woke up. I woke up on the little ramp of a LCVP. They were putting plasma in me and other kind of fluid, and they were waiting to take me aboard the USS Solace, where they shipped me to Guam.
That was a hospital ship.
That's a hospital ship. And then from Guam, we went to Pearl Harbor, IA number 10 hospital, where they patched me up, and then they sent me to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel for rest and recuperation, where every Monday morning you would look at the bulletin board to see if your name was on there to go back. And I found my name sooner or later to go back. And went back to Maui and started training for Formosa, which... we never did do, which was fortunate for us.
Damn right.
And then they had, I was still single. By that time, I was a buck sergeant, and I had made a corporal, a buck, and platoon sergeant in combat, but they take it away from me. I was only temporary, so they left me with the buck sergeant. And then I went over to Guam again, and we were, after the war was over, we were training, taking care of the prisoners. And they were getting repatriated to go home, and so they left there and came home and I stayed in the reserves, and In late 47, early 48, they reactivated the 4th Naval District. And in late 48, and I'm still in the reserves, they said that we were going to be training troops, but they knew they were going to go to Korea. They knew it right away.
Oh, yeah.
And so I said to myself, well, I don't really want to go back to Korea if I can help it. I'd like to do some of it. You get lucky once in combat or twice.
You're silly.
So anyway, so I said to my commander, I said, I'd like to transfer out to another outfit. He said, well, you can do that. Excuse me. You can do that if you want, he says, but you got to join an active outfit. So I said, I got friends in the National Guard who are active. And he said, well, let me see who you're talking to, and I'll write a letter and see what we can do. So they wrote a letter for me, and this sergeant that I knew in the National Guard said, we want him to come over. We'll give him another stripe. They wanted me to go there because of my training. And so he said, well, okay, you can go. So I went over. I joined the National Guard, and they were on active duty in Camp Polk. They went down to Camp Polk, Louisiana, and they gave me a military MOS number of 1302. So it was a gunnery sergeant, and so when we were done training the troops, I remember they got a directive from California. They wanted a metal working foreman, which I had some experience, as the 1302 gunnery sergeant. They needed him in Korea right away. And so I was the only one in Southeast United States, and they had to take me. That's how I got to go to Korea. But then I stayed there for 2 tours.
You're lucky, aren't you?
Well, I stayed because I was single.
Yeah,
I didn't mind.
okay. Single, fuzzy.
So I was there from 51 to 53, so
Good.
2 tours.
Okay. I'm going to go back a little bit. If you will, I'd like to wear a...
I don't mean to get ahead of you that way.
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm slow keeping up with you. Try to get back a bit. For the record, this is dated 20 April 1945. It's from Holland Smith, and if you know anything about Mad Howard, he was the guy who said, okay, send the flag up or send up a big one.
Bigger flag, not a
Right,
smaller one. Yeah.
if you're talking about Iwo. Let me read it to you, folks. It's 5 or 6 lines, but it says quite a bit, I think. United States Marine Corps Headquarters, Fleet Marine Office Pacific, Care Fleet Post Office, San Francisco. From Commanding General to Private Joseph T. Lynskey, serial number such and such, U.S. Marine Corps Reserve. Subject, Purple Heart Medal awarding of. Enclosed, 1 Purple Heart. In the name of the President of the United States and by direction of the Secretary of the Navy, the Purple Heart Medal is here awarded by the Commanding General, Fleet Marine Force 2, again citing your name, for wounds received as a result of enemy action in the Asiatic Pacific area on 10 March 1945. You can add in there Iwo Jima. 21 days on the island, and you forgot to keep your head down, right? I know, I'm not belittling it, but
Yeah, I understand.
that's it. Now, in addition to this, there's something from a guy named Harry Truman. Some of you may remember him, played the piano. To you who answered the call of your country and served in its armed forces to bring about the total defeat of the enemy, I extend the heartfelt thanks of a grateful nation. As one of the nation's finest, you undertook the most severe task one can be called upon to perform, because you demonstrated the fortitude, resourcefulness, and calm judgment necessary to carry out that task. We now look to you for leadership and an example in further exalting our country in peace. Signed, Harry Truman. Pretty good autographs, okay? That takes care of one piece. Now, continue, if you will, where you said you went back to the other place called Korea. When did you land there, and what happened to you there?
I landed in December of 51,
Okay.
and I was attached to the 811th Aviation Engineering Battalion of the 8th Army, and we were stationed at Kimpo Air Force Base, which was a jet base for the U.S. Air Force at the time.
Oh, the 86s flew out of there, didn't they?
86s,
Yeah.
and they weren't flying the jets yet. They wouldn't do that. They would use the 86 as much as possible.
Okay.
Well, the bigger jets, I meant, you know. Then he had the P-51s out of there too. They had a lot of them there too. And so I spent the first tour there, and I went back to Tachikawa, Japan. After you had to spend 11 months of your tour, and you had to leave. I went back to Tachikawa, and I came home. And I spent a couple weeks home, and went back to Korea again, and with the same outfit, but in a different area. Then we were up in Seoul, a little bit lower. The first time we were near the 38th parallel, where Kimpo was, but after that we went a little bit lower to Seoul. So generally all my time was in Central Korea. I was not in combat in Korea, but it really was combat, but you weren't there fighting hand to hand.
Okay, it wasn't face to face.
In the morning you wake up, you have to go repair the field. It was blown up or something.
Oh yeah,
bombs, you know.
Been down there.
They did it every day. They did that. So
now you talked about having metal working material or experience. How did that qualify you as being the only guy around here? Would that put you as a special MOS?
Well, I don't know why it did that, but I did have the training in a machine shop in school, and it reverts back to early 42 when I was in high school. I played baseball in high school, so I had a knock on the door one day when I lived near this place called C. Howard Hunt Pen Company. They made fountain pens and artist pens and pencil sharpeners and things. They were on the corner of my street that I lived. And a fellow there said, "I heard you play ball, and I want you to come play for us." I said, "Well, I can't do that. I'm playing in high school. That's against the regulations." He says, "Well, and if you got paid, it wouldn't allow that." So I said, "Well, you're going to play ball off season, not when you're playing for the high school, and we're not going to pay you. We're going to teach you a trade."
Oh.
And they taught me to be a machinist and then become a tool maker.
Yeah.
So through the years, off and on, I got the training, but only when I was home. So.
Good.
But that's how I got to do that. You know.
So one thing swaps off to another.
Yeah, that's true.
A little cumshaw here and there never hurt anybody.
But I enjoyed playing baseball, so that was my favorite.
Now, did you ever have to play any USO ball over in Korea?
No.
Okay.
I played softball in Korea with the local teams, but not in any unified situation.
Okay. Now, what else did you do over in Korea that you'd like to talk about, or I'd like you to talk about?
Well, I had a good crew. I had every 6 weeks you could go on R&R if you didn't have anything to do. So every 6 weeks I went to Japan.
Oh.
So it went to Tachikawa, then down to Tokyo, and did different things what servicemen do. And 3 or 4 would go, and I had platoon sergeants and buck sergeants who were taking care of different parts of the company. Company had a automotive, tank, armor, watch repair, welding, and a machine shop. All were different groups, and I had a sergeant in charge of each one of them.
Okay, were you the top kick then?
I was top. I was a gunnery, but they were acting top kick.
Top kick, okay, yeah.
And was on the way home. That's when they gave me the acting top kick, and then they took it away when I took my discharge. So it kept me the gunnery sergeant. So I got discharged as gunnery sergeant.
Okay, but you paid the price already.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Well.
Now,
I feel it's lucky, so.
Sorry, go ahead. I'd like to flip back a bit on some of these pictures. I'd like to show the people that one right there. And you tell them, I'll hold this up so we can see it, hopefully without any flashing. Can you get a real good shot of this, please? This, on the title on the back, let me read it. U.S. Marines lay dead on the black sands of Iwo Jima as the battle rages on and around them. Their sacrifice must never be forgotten. This is what it looked like from where he was standing. As you remember, if you've been there at all, there was no place to get a foothold, no place to hide, and you were fair game no matter what, right?
That's right.
They had you zeroed in from Surabachi, you're right down the line.
That's true.
I know.
True. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that. Put that in your memory bank, folks. This is the kind of history that will never, never be forgotten and should never. Okay? Now, you've got some more stuff of the old Fourth. I'd like you to show some of it. I'll hold it up and you can talk about it, if
Well,
you
that's
will.
just the battle pictures.
Oh, just the battle pictures. You're the boss. There we go. I wish we could show you all these pictures, folks. We just don't
sorry I
have
didn't
time.
have this fixed for you.
Oh, hey, there's no rush. The CBs are used to waiting on the Marines.
It starts right here.
Here we go.
Starts right there.
Dig, huh? Okay. Can you see this? Let's get this. We're bragging, folks. This is the Old Men's Hat Club. There's a picture of the island, right?
That's right.
Can you show us, if you can, walk through a little bit where you went in and where you were?
This is Red Beach red, yellow, and blue. I went in right here at the very end of this beach on this side and up into the meat grinder at the end of the airfield and into the amphitheater, which is called Turkey Hill Knob, and 362, which is what most of our casualties were. And that's it's around Hill 362. I'm not sure exactly which ravine is where I got hit.
Okay.
So.
Now, is this Suribachi back? Oops,
This is
down
Suribachi here.
Okay,
You're on the
right,
other side of the island.
Yeah, I'm reading backwards, so.
Well, that's also backwards. So.
Okay. All right. How about any others you want to kind of flash back to that are
Is it
a little bit out of the ordinary?
out of the ordinary? Well, there's a picture of us going in.
Oh, okay. That's the first line, too, isn't it?
That's the first line of attack.
Those little white dots aren't porpoises, folks.
No.
LBPs.
Each one is a
what have-
platoon of men.
Each one a platoon of men, fuzzy-faced, bright-eyed, and ready to go. Some of them did. Yeah, well, let's not get nostalgic, Bob, but this is something we should all know about, I think. Any
Well,
more?
you know, and Tom Brokaw wrote about that. And Tom Brokaw said in his book, The Greatest Generation, that amphibious fleet going in was generally between 17 and a half and 20-year-old
Yeah.
kids. There was a lot of veterans, but not too many. And he said that they went in kids in, and when that ramp went down and you hit the beach, you were then 18 and 19-year-old adults.
Yeah.
Immediately, as soon as the first shot was fired. So it's we lost a lot of men. We lost almost 2,000 men the very first day, just on that beach. But overall, we lost 6,900 Marines out of
Just
2.5 divisions, which at that time the divisions were only around 14,000. So I would say it was close to about out of 40,000 men, we lost 6,900 Marines.
Okay.
And just recently, we received in the Leatherneck, they said the 4th Marine Division is about only 4,100 of us left. So
Yeah.
roughly that is.
Numbers have a strange way of
Yeah.
biting you, you know?
Well, they claim we're dying 1,200 a day in the
Yeah.
country. That's what they said.
I know.
And so far, I'm alive. I'm thankful for that.
Amen. Now that, there's a number of folks I may have told you before, but we've had information that World War II, as an example, they estimate there are about 16 million guys and gals in all branches of the service who did their part. Everybody wasn't Audie Murphy, and you weren't a hero, and you didn't do all kinds of wonderful things. But the important thing is, we talked about before the show, every guy and gal had a job to do, and they did it. What we're trying to do with this program on this station and other stations like us throughout the country is to get people like Joe and Bill and some of the others we've talked about to come here and share their history with us. Each one had a job to do. You can see back here on the bottom, this kid was busy for a while. We talked about Iwo. Also, I believe you may have got nailed in Korea, too.
I did, yeah.
I'd like you to bring us up to date on that one.
Well, I was in Kimpo Air Force Base, and it was an attack from across the way, and a shrapnel hit me in the eye up here, and that was just another Purple Heart. So
Just another Purple Heart. You know, you get 3 of them, you can go any place you want.
well, they claim that, but that's not true.
I know, damn right well
they
it's not true.
they tell you that, but that's
Yeah,
not true.
I know. Well, let's take a few minutes, if you will.
me turn around?
You can turn around, absolutely. You can do whatever you want. Now, let me preface this. As glorious as this is, there's still some that he didn't have room to put up there, but we'll get to that. You walk us through, if you will, so that we can get an idea what the old gunny did.
Well, this is a Navy commendation, a unit commendation, This is the Presidential Unit Commendation, which our division had 2 of. This is a Purple Heart with a silver leaf in it, which is 2 Purple Hearts. This is the World War II Victory Medal. This is the Occupation of Korea. I'm not quite sure what that one is, but and this is the Asiatic Pacific Battle Ribbon with battle stars for each battle.
There's 4 there, right?
Yeah.
5, actually.
And there's a 4th Marine Division patch. And there's a Korean patch from 50 to 53, but I was only there from 51 to 53. It's a Good Conduct Medal, of which I have one here coming, which I haven't gotten yet. I have another Purple Heart coming, which they won't send a Purple Heart. They'll send me the cluster like this here.
Yeah.
See it? They'll do that. This is I'm not forget what that one is now. Oh, that's a Good Conduct. No, that's not the good. I can't read that up.
Okay. The eyes get weak a
Yeah,
little
this
while.
is the Bronze Star. This is the Korean Service Medal, Korean Occupation. This is New Jersey Distinguished Service. This is New York Distinguished Service. And
Then
these-
your rockets and all that other good stuff, huh?
well, yeah, that's a prestigious thing in the Marine Corps, a gunnery sergeant.
Amen. Amen.
And this is the pictures of a tent row on Camp Maui. It was a carbine there. All non-commissioned officers carry carbines. They wouldn't let you have the M1 and a sidearm. 6 men in a tent. That's where we trained.
Now,
in
you
my-
didn't tell us about the Bronze Star. How'd you just happen to pick that
Well,
up?
it's an attack upon a machine gun nest, which I wiped out, and that just happens to be how I got it. I mean, that was-
Just casually, huh?
Yeah.
Just walking around, some guy popped at you. No.
He was in a pillbox area, and we had a runner run up there with a satchel. That's a bomb satchel. He dropped that in, and we blew it up, and they came out of there. One was alive, one wasn't, and I had to kill the one. And anyway,
Anyway, that's the name of the game. Now, with all of this, I understand from what you told me before, you have a permanent disability as what?
yes, I do. 100%.
100%.
Yes, I can't. I'm totally and permanently unemployable by the United States government. They have me in Category 1, which is 1 or more Purple Hearts and combat related, and they take care of my needs. I got a 50% post-traumatic disorder percentage, 30% combat wounds, 10% for each leg wounds, which is that's already 100, and then I got a 15% for the bottom of my feet, which I hadn't been able to change my socks or wash my feet for 21 days, and they got pretty bad. A lot of men, all men had
A
that.
jungle rot?
Well, that's call it that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know,
but
but
you couldn't do it because you didn't have time.
Nothing to put on.
Well, you didn't have the time either.
Yeah,
I mean.
no.
And so it comes out to about 120%, which you can't get over 100. And the government works in a different way. When you get the percentages, if they say you're 50% suffering from 50% post-traumatic stress disorder, you also are not suffering from 50%. So they balance it out. And when they all get done, I'm 74.5% disabled, and they make that 100% because it's over the limit, which is 72. So they take care of me medically. They give me all the medicine I need and all the service I need, and I go every 3 months to see the primary doctor. I go once a month to take care of my blood, and they're trying to treat my lungs, which are tragic. I got emphysema in both lungs and COPD, which combination of smoking and also from being involved in the after effects of the nuclear warfare. I was in Hiroshima 14 days after they dropped the
you
bomb
were exposed?
on Hiroshima, on Nagasaki.
Nagasaki, yeah.
I was after that was all done. I was in there, and there was still atmospheric
Radioactive.
problems there. So they claimed some of that was from that too.
Okay.
But I kind of think it was mostly the cigarettes.
Now, with a nickel a pack, you can't help it. what's it, $3.95 or something like that, even worse today.
$6.40 for a pack of cigarettes.
I'm glad I quit. I'm too cheap to smoke anymore. Now, after all this is said and done and hearing what you've gone through and are going through, what's your life been afterwards? Did you take time out to get married, for example, and have some stuff, additional schooling? Or what do you do to keep busy?
Well, I came home in '53 from Korea, and I took a 90-day leave, which you could take and still keep your rank if you went back in again.
Okay.
So I intended to go back in again, and took a job as a toolmaker, and I met my wife at this place, Radio Condenser Corporation, which was making tuners for the Philco that put in your car, the push-button tuners. They was doing that. So I worked there. I met her and fell in love with her, and I tried to get her to go with me. If we got married, she said, if we get married, I don't want to go that way to the Marine Corps.
Back to the Corps.
I was going to go back in the Corps. So I got married, and I was married 49 years and 11 months when she died. We're all going to be almost 50 years. And I never bothered with the VA. The VA gave me a 10% disability when I got discharged. And I didn't bother with it because I was able to work, and I didn't want anything from the government that I didn't deserve. And so I worked, and when she died, I had a good friend of mine who retired from West Point, said to me, Joe, you're going to go with me to Wilmington, Delaware, to the Naval Hospital, and you're going to get what you deserve. And so he took me over there, and by the time, after about a year and 3 months, I was asked to go before the board of examiners there, and they read my records and all from Washington and from St. Louis for the Army, and they said, well, how come you didn't come here 50 years ago? Because you have 100% 50 years ago. I said, well, I didn't think I deserved it, and I wanted to just be with my family, and that's what I did. So as of the time my wife died till now, I've been on the 100% disability.
Okay.
That's about it, Bob.
Hey.
I don't know much.
What else can you say, buddy?
Well,
You
hoorah. I can say hoorah. I'm still a Marine. I'll always will be.
Yeah, that's right. And now, we jokingly put these hats out here to show that despite all the foolishness, there is cooperation between the Marines and the Seabees.
Oh, absolutely.
And when we were in Okinawa, and I will put this in polite language, one of the guys said at one time, we were down at the chow hall, we were visiting, and he said, some guy in front of us, an Army guy of all things, was starting to jaw on a fellow who happened to be a Marine, and there was two Seabees standing in back of him. And the fellow said, be careful what you talk about that guy, because his father's standing right in back of you. And if I live to be 25, I'll never forget that. But it's true.
But they rebuilt this airfield.
Oh, yeah.
Here is an airfield. They rebuilt this airfield on Iwo Jima. And I saw that B-29 come in, the first one to land on Iwo Jima after they captured the airfield. He landed with the whole motor out of the left-hand motor was gone. He landed there, and 5.5 hours later, he was off going to Guam.
Yeah.
Safe and sound.
I know.
So that was an island that you may not have thought was
it was important because it was a safety
but it
net.
really was important. It saved an awful lot of lives. It did.
Same with Oki. Now, we did a lot of
Okinawa
work
was a tremendous
on the Ontan. I had a guy from, he was a B-24 pilot. And we just sit gabbing, and he said, remember this and remember that. We had a luck a couple of weeks ago. We did an interview out at the airport when the Winged Victory, the show is coming out. And he just sat there, and out of nowhere, he and I went back some 60 years. He was flying them, and we were down on the strip repairing them. They'd come in the morning and blow them to hell, and they take off at their morning flight, and by the time they get back home, they had a safe place to put it down. And you'd be surprised how many 25s and even the 29s after a while came back limping.
There's quite a few.
There's quite a few.
Quite a few, yeah. I read somewhere so many, but I'm not quite sure how. Quite a few lives were saved.
Yeah, the
well,
numbers.
it was only 400 miles from Tokyo, I remember.
I know. What used to be
Guam was 1,000 miles away.
Yeah, Doolittle and his guys, it was a one-way stripe. Even with extra tanks, they couldn't make it all the way across and then come back. Just mileage, but it was there, and it had to be done.
Well, there's a lot of good things came out of it. There's some interesting stories from Iwo. One was, you ever heard of Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone?
No.
He was a Medal of Honor winner from the 1st Marine Division in Guadalcanal. He wiped
Oh.
out several machine gun nests.
Oh, yes.
And he was a gunnery sergeant, and he didn't have to go back in combat. He joined the 5th Marine Division Force, which was the other outfit here. And he went on Iwo, and he went up to Suribachi, and he was killed going up Suribachi. His sister was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps a little afterwards, after his death, and they awarded him the Medal of Honor, but they allow her to wear that at special ceremonies only, and everybody has to salute her, and so that's one of the many stories. Another good story was a young fellow just died about 2 months ago, John Lucas. He was 15 when he ran away and joined the Marine Corps.
Like
you didn't have to prove.
I know. Oh,
You didn't have to prove your age then.
yeah.
You just had to tell them. And he joined the Marine Corps, and it was in the 4th Marine Division, and he did quite a lot of stuff, and they gave him the Professional Medal Honorable. He was only 16 and a half when he got the medal. But by the time he got home to receive it from Harry Truman, and he wrote a book about this, and it's in the book, he got home, he was about 17 and a half years old, and Truman was putting the medal around his neck, and he said, "John, I'd give anything if I could be in your boots and you're in mine." And John said, "When can we change?"
Beautiful.
Beautiful. And there's a lot of good stories. And
Oh, yeah.
it'd be interesting, you might know about that. It'd be interesting, did you know about the home front in Altamont? In Altamont, across from the train station, is a little restaurant called the Home Front.
This is in New York?
This is right, Altamont, New York.
Okay.
And she runs it. It was from her husband and her. It's strictly World War II and Korea. Nothing else in there. It's all there is in there. There's pictures, mementos of many people. And a friend of mine took me out there from church, and he wanted me to see it. And I did. And I talked to this owner, this lady, and she said, I would like you to read a book I got. And because I had told her, and she has a picture of Iwo Jima right in the center of the restaurant. Oh, and she's got a picture of me right there on the seat.
Oh, yeah?
So I said, so she brought this book out about John Lucas. I said, I already know that. So she asked me to autograph her copy that she got from John Lucas. And also she has a sort of a book that she lets people, that she wants to put things in writing. So I wrote in her book.
Memoirs?
I guess that's what it is too, yeah. But I did that too. But it's an interesting place to go. Someone ought to go see that sometime. It's only open till 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, I can get a shit from I'm going to write this one down because this is something I want.
It's the Home Front. It was in the Times Tribune a couple of years ago.
Well, I'm not allowed to read those New York propagandas. You know that. Okay. Altamont?
It's Altamont, New York. I don't know how you get there. A guy took me. It's called the Home Front. It's a little restaurant. And there's nothing in there except World War II memorabilia. Nothing current.
No.
Got all the Look magazines, the Life magazines. They got the signs of coffee and grilled cheese sandwich, 20 cents.
20 cents,
We don't
yeah.
get that today.
I know. Now, after all has been said and done, what kind of advice, if that's a good way to put it, and what's your reaction to your service life? Was it positive or negative? And what can some of these young guys and gals do today you think the service life
Well,
might
I think
help?
it was positive with me.
Okay.
But the one negative thing I think is I should have stayed in somehow after having 10 years active
Yeah.
and 2 inactive.
Go for
but,
20.
You couldn't do that. So it was life. God led me a different way, and I believe God led me. That's who I believe
You're
in.
not alone.
And so He led me to my wife. But I think today I have a young fellow I'm going to write to who just went to Fort Benning, Georgia. He signed up with a 6-year situation, and they gave him $10,000 bonus up front and $10,000 when he finishes his sixth year.
School.
And they'll give him a college education and his chance to go to OCS. And I said, you stay in, young fellow. You're going to have a good career. You can't beat it. I know it's not easy, but if you can take service life, it's nothing any better than that. It really isn't. It's rewarding, it's challenging, it's dangerous, and also it's fruitful when you retire. I mean, you get a decent situation when you retire. You could get good health benefits and good retirement pay. And anyway, I'm just so thankful that I'm alive, and I'm thankful that the government is taking care of me now.
Okay.
And no matter what anybody tells you, the VA is taking care of their men. In Albany County, in the Stratton Memorial Hospital, which is the VA hospital, they take care of 33,000 veterans a month. A month.
Wow.
That's why you can't afford not to take your appointment when the time comes. Be sure you call if you have to cancel.
Or you'd be
Because it
bumped.
takes 3 to 4 months to get another appointment.
Yeah.
They do a wonderful job. They're staffed by the Albany Medical Center interns. And they're good doctors over there.
Yeah.
They're all good doctors. Anyway, I'm just, and I want to thank you for what you're doing for me today. I
my
didn't think I
pleasure,
was
buddy.
able to do that, but
It didn't hurt either, did it?
no, it didn't.
Okay. And the best
I
part
was
of it-
nervous this morning, but
Yeah.
I'm all right now.
No,
And
this has been
I
great.
got to say one thing, though. I love the Marine Corps. I know I was in the Army, too, but I love the Marine Corps. It's just you do different things when you're young and you're not married. You go different ways in life. But I enjoyed the time I served in both services to the point of what they represented. Now, I didn't enjoy combat, but I knew that was part of what had to be done. And you only need 1 day in combat or 4 campaigns in combat. It's still the same. That bullet will still kill you.
Oh, yeah.
That's all it takes is
It's
one.
the one you can't see coming.
And I lost my very good friend on Iwo. We were in a foxhole together. You take turns. You would shoot, and
Yeah, then
he
he'd
would
cover.
rest, and back and forth. And he said, "I'm going to my turn." So he went down, and I started to guard and shoot. And he said, "Joe, I don't have a match. I got to light my cigarette." So I reached in my pocket to get a match to give it to him like that, and here he blew his head right off. Joe Racinko, I'll never forget it, from Chester, Pennsylvania, was my good friend. And those things reflect in your
Oh,
memories.
yeah.
And I was, through the years and being married, I had the nightmares, and I still have some of them. They're a little bit better now, but I guess the older you get, maybe it's less emphasized in your mind.
No.
But and my wife suffered some because I would swing my arms in the middle of the night and bop her
Beat
one.
the heck out of her.
Oh, it's terrible. So anyway, it's
How's it been living with your son? You said you moved up from that place down south.
well,
to-
it's different.
Yeah, you a
And
granddad?
I was alone for almost 2.5 years after my wife died.
Uh-huh.
And he said he'd rather me be close to him about 15 minutes rather than 5 hours, which was a drive. And I have twin daughters in Jersey, and they wanted me to come to live with my son, their brothers, so they
Good.
wanted me to do that.
Good.
But it's a little bit different. Now, I am now the private, and he is the gunnery sergeant.
Oh, he's in the Corps?
No,
Oh.
there. That just literally, literally, he's
He's a top.
he takes care of everything.
Okay.
Don't do this. Don't do that. You know, be careful.
Yeah.
Watch
Kids
out.
have a way of saying that, you know, it's a complete reversal. After a certain point in time, you start downhill. Be careful, there's 3 steps, not 2.
That's
or, you know,
exactly
yeah,
right.
you
I
do
fell
a-
down the steps one day.
Yeah,
He says, you got to
you
be
do a
careful.
360 and not even know there's anything down there.
Yeah.
But
But he's a
that's the
good
name of the
son.
game.
But I have good relationship with my children. He's and my daughter-in-law treats me the same as he does. I mean, I have no difficulty.
She orders you around too.
No, she asked me to do things to help.
Okay, good.
What I can do.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't do anything physical because of my lungs. Now, if I walk from here to the car, I'll have to take a puff on the puffer.
Not a cigarette.
No, the albuterol
Yeah.
from my lungs. Yeah. But you have to accept that.
Yeah. And the best part is, if you're smart enough to learn to accept it and do it,
Yeah.
it makes it a lot easier.
But I would go, Bob, I would go back. If I could, I'd go back and go through that again. I would.
The whole bit?
I think I would. I don't know about the combat, but I think I would because I couldn't change what happened.
No. But it changed you.
It changed me. It did, yeah. I don't know about the combat, but I would go back to the 50s any day because they were good years, the
Sure.
50s.
Okay. 2 words. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for what you've done for me here.
These
and
guys are
thank you for the
tremendous, aren't
crew,
they?
And, I'm thankful there's people like you that won't let us forget because what Tom Brokaw said, that the greatest generation, if it wasn't for us, there wouldn't be any young people today, good or bad, and we did good and bad. And of course, as far as Iwo Jima is concerned, the memorial down in Arlington National Cemetery says it on a Marine memorial. Uncommon valor was a common virtue at Iwo Jima.
Right.
26 Medal of Honors, the most of any one campaign, of any outfit. One campaign, 26.
I'm trying to put together, as we talked about earlier, a tribute, in my small way, to the 11th of November Day, Armistice Day.
Oh, that's a tremendous day.
And one of the quotes that I'm going to use that the guy sent me, that little scroll, different sorts of stuff, he said, if you can read this, thank a teacher. But if you can read it in English, thank a World War II vet. I think that sums it all up.
I don't think I heard that before, Bob.
Okay, that's my present to you and all the other guys. It means so much, that one word in English, okay? Again, all I can say, Sarge, thank you, Semper Fi, and come back and see us. We'll be here. Okay. And anytime you want, you're welcome, okay?
Thank you.
That's a wrap, folks. This is another one. Excuse me, a little bit wet, but this is what we're trying to do. Again, you don't have to be a hero. If you had a job to do, guy or gal, and we'd like the girls to come out, the nurses, the WACs, the WAYs who did so much, you'll be well treated, believe me. The highest of respect, from at least from this old guy. Thank you. Come back and see us again.